Persuading people to take the actions we want can be hard. Our teams and clients are bombarded with thousands of messages every single day. But there is a way for you to get above the noise. Stories. This is the Stories with Traction podcast, and I'm your host, Matt Zahn. Join my guests and me as we unpack the power of storytelling. We'll talk about topics like leadership, sales, and marketing, all through the lens of strategic storytelling. Enjoy this episode. You're about to listen to a storytelling FAQ sprint episode with Michelle Griffin. For those of you who might not be familiar with Michelle, she coaches on authority-focused personal branding to help professionals step out and be seen as leaders in their space. Since this is an FAQ sprint, Michelle will be answering a question on branding, and I'll be answering a question on storytelling. Let's dive in.
All right, Matt. So I have a quick question for you. How does your ICP change your storytelling?
So this is a great question, and it's a question a lot of people should be asking themselves before they're sharing a story with a person or an audience. So this might seem a little bit complex. Don't think of it complex. So hopefully we can break it down to more of a simplistic form, but there's just some variables that you need to be aware of. So first, let's talk about what an ICP/C is. So ICP/C, ideal client persona and or community. So these are the individuals that you're really trying to get through to. So from a sales perspective, for anyone listening that goes in and they do sales presentations to organizations, this would be absolutely critical for them to ask these questions prior to going into that organization. So some things to keep in mind: family situation. Okay, so from a family situation perspective, are your clients predominantly married? Are they single parents? Are they married with children in the house? Are they married and empty nesters? These are just some questions that you can ask yourself. So why would that be important? So I'll use myself as an example. The overwhelming majority of my clients have children. Why is that important for me to recognize? Because I would be a fool not to share at least one story regarding one of my kids with a business theme intertwined. It's going to be a lot more relatable to that audience. So another question to ask is, what generation do they come from? So let's talk about the key buyers when it comes to generation. So you have baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Z. They're making up a lot of the buying power, obviously, in the workforce today. These generations are radically different. So the question would be, does the story you're sharing, does it connect with a Gen Xer if that is the dominant generation that your clients are coming from? I know it sounds super simplistic, and why would we be asking this question? But it's amazing how many people are sharing stories that, yes, it connects with millennials, but it does not connect with baby boomers. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the key generation, and how are we asking these questions, or how are we sharing these stories? What is the highest level of education that the individual or the audience that you're speaking to predominantly is a part of? Like, what is the highest level of education? So you can ask yourself that question. One of the reasons for that is it going to be more articulate when it comes to communication, or is it going to be more brash? So if you're speaking to doctors, it's a little bit different than speaking to individuals that are in the trades. We need to be mindful of the way we're communicating. What primary job responsibilities do they have? And this is, sales, marketing, operations. Do they lead people? All of this is going to touch on pain points. And then what nation and or state do they reside in? This is so important. And it's amazing. I talk with a lot of business leaders in the United States, and they'll do business in other states, and they don't understand why their people can't connect to individuals in another state. So anyone listening, if you have team members that are in, let's say, South Carolina, and you have a distribution center right around New York City, culturally, that is vastly different. So we need to understand the cultural differences of the people we're speaking to, even if they're all based in the United States. There's major cultural differences. So those are just some questions that you can ask yourself to try to figure out who are the individuals we're speaking to, and what are the stories that would connect to those different questions.
Oh my God, that's super interesting. Thank you for really outlining the difference, especially the cultural and the generational. I never thought about that too deeply.
For sure. And since we are doing acronyms, let's talk about UVP, right? So a lot of people might not be aware of that, but how would you define someone's unique value proposition, that UVP, through their personal brand?
It's incredibly important. So the unique value proposition, as a lot of jargon and acronyms just gets thrown out, but I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive behind the scenes on why that's important, what it truly means, and how I look at it and teach it with my foundational approach to personal brand building. Anyone can just say I'm building a personal brand. And unfortunately, the term is a little bit vague and misunderstood. But I like to say, let's go back to the foundation on the value you bring. Now, when you think about it, we're bringing value much like a business is to solve a problem. As a personal brand, we're, just the vehicle out there. We have to think of ourselves as what value, AKA, what problem are we solving? So before we can get to that and define that unique value prop, there's a lot of templates and everything out there. I want to ask and have listeners think about these important questions. And it's not just the title, like really titles don't mean a lot right now. Let's go deeper. Let's talk about, instead of like who I am, who am I here for, right? Team somebody, not team everybody. The more narrow we are, that person is going to know, oh, this person is for me, this person is me. So we have to get really clear and narrow the person, the entity we are here to serve, right? Support, share, solve for, all the things. Then once we know that one person, we have to get really granular on this problem we solve. We want to be top of mind, the go-to. So when someone thinks, oh, who can help us with story strategy? Oh, Matt Zahn. He helps organizations with storytelling to really break through with marketing, sales, leadership, all the things. You are known for that problem, that one thing. And so, Matt, we have to get really granular on the audience. And you've, in these conversations that we've had, you are so on the money with all the problems your ideal clients and ideal community have. So you've done the research. So I would highly recommend we know exactly the pain points, not just the exterior, the interior, the philosophical ones as well, the injustices, the things that are just stirring them up, because that's what people, as we know, are walking around with, right, every day with the problems in our brains. We have to know really what the problem we solve. Now, that's sort of some of it, but we can go deeper. How am I different, right? How am I going to position myself so that I take who I am and what I personally believe and my values and all that thing with the person that I'm here for and the pain points that's troubling them, the desires that they need? How can I position this that what I bring is so unique in a category, an obvious choice that is different? And so I have that top of mind recollection. So I want, and that's probably the hardest point, is to realize, and that's what I help my clients do, is differentiation and positioning. That's my favorite part of personal branding, because you can't just say I have a personal brand. You got to go deeper. And so you want to know not only how am I different, it's also to why. I'm going back to the beliefs and everything. People, as you say, in storytelling, that connection. Why does this matter to me? Because in a personal brand, it is, us being forward facing, but they're going to really relate and have some commonality when you have that why. And it's going to have a strong point of view, is really what I think we need in today's age of automation and AI. We need more connection and transformation, and that why is the core of it. Okay. And then also too, it is how you help people. Now, Matt, you can help people with speaking, with courses, coaching. Same with me. Like I do all that too, writing books. There's a lot of different ways that we're different and bring our value to the world. So we have to really identify, we don't want to be the Cheesecake Factory menu, right? We want to be top of mind for what we do, how we do it. So we're known for one thing. So before you define, and, there's a lot of different templates on how to write those statements, personal brand statements, if you will. Do the work. You'll have a lot more payoff. You'll have a lot more top of mind status when people know. And I'll tell you, this is the hardest part about building a personal brand, right? But just like anything, Matt, when you build a house, you do the blueprints, you lay the foundation, then the fun part, the easier part comes up. But when you have it, you have a strong foundation that people now know. Go to Michelle for personal branding. Go to Matt for story strategy. So that is essentially the nuts and bolts of how you build your UVP for your personal brand.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. You just listened to the latest FAQ Sprint episode with Michelle Griffin. If you have a question for Michelle or me, please email me at matt@mattzahn.com with the subject line FAQ episode.